There are so many things I can see in your hand. What are the topics you want to pick for today's discussion, sir?
Very good afternoon to you, Mr. Kanchan, and of course, a very good morning to Marius Dragomir and Norman Floyd Barnes joining us from Washington, D.C. Let me add on here that at least 40 Palestinians were killed and dozens wounded in new Israeli strikes across the war-torn Gaza strips, according to various medical teams in the besieged strip. In addition, we see Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro announcing that he would deploy 4.5 million members of the national militia in response to threats from the U.S. And the White House has ruled out deploying U.S. ground troops in Ukraine while confirming that air support remains under consideration as part of security guarantees. And these are the top three that I have picked out for our discussion today.
Arms packages discussion centered on offering Ukraine security guarantees akin to NATO's Article 5. According to Article 5, and arranging for a 90 billion arms packages financed by European nations. I mean European countries, I mean NATO partners. Ukraine also plans to sell drones to the US. Very interesting and fascinating situation that Ukraine is planning to sell their own made drones for the United Nations. Ladies and gentlemen, you are hearing Norman from Washington and Marius Dragomir from Santiago de Compostela, Spain, but we want to hear from our international affairs commentator Shamsul Alam Pantho. What a news!
This is quite escalatory. Let me also begin my statements by saying that last Friday's meeting with Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin, some commentators and various critics are saying that the meeting held sway in Putin's favor. And we understand this by the on-screen awkward moments that the two leaders had shared. Reporters during the media or during their address to the media had asked Vladimir Putin about his aggression towards Ukraine, in which we can visually see that Vladimir Putin felt very awkward in such an exchange. And not only so, yesterday we see Donald Trump sitting down with major European leaders, and he went one by all of their names, addressing where they are from and greeting them and announcing what he would do as the leader of the United States of America. But right now the situation remains as Donald Trump is waiting to see how much flexibility Volodymyr Zelensky shall show to Vladimir Putin in a bilateral meeting of the two sides. And later, if that goes well, the U.S. is set to hold a trilateral meeting, including the U.S., Russia and Ukraine, and how the three sides will handle this upcoming ceasefire or a cessation of aggression towards one another. In other news, we also see Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan and U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio discussing their exchange between the European leaders. Turkish diplomatic sources previously said that a meeting of these leaders may be held in Istanbul. So the bilateral meeting between Zelensky and Vladimir Putin, there are likely chances of them meeting in Istanbul and understanding one another. But there are much more topics in the international field. I'll start with Middle East. In the Middle East, we see Israel bombardment killing almost 40 Palestinians in the devastated Gaza Strip. And when I talk about Israel, I must understand their movements in the geopolitical arena. Previously, we have seen them striking the defense ministry in the Syrian capital, and of course, it was related to the monitoring the ceasefire in the Suweda province. We know that much of the factions were fighting one another, and Israel had come in the support of one of these factions, the Bedouin factions, and what happened was fighting had broken out. Syrian Foreign Minister Assad al-Shaibani met in Paris with Israeli delegation to discuss the de-escalation methods and measures to restore stability in southern Syria. And in addition to this, they were of course reactivating the 1974 disengagement agreement between Israel and Syria, according to various reports. But also alongside, when I'm talking about Israel, I must issue the target and issue about the Gazan people. The death toll right now stands at 62,100 Palestinians killed ever since October 2023. The ministry in Israel is set to call up around 60,000 reserve soldiers for a stepped-up offensive in Gaza to defeat Hamas, according to an Israeli government official. And also, Hamas has agreed to the new ceasefire plan put forward by Egypt and Qatar, but Israel still has not responded.
Mixed signals, because he is not interested to sit with the French President Emmanuel Macron and German Chancellor Merz, and pushed for comprehensive security measures, stressed Ukraine's right to sovereignty. I personally feel this is very interesting. What's your take, sir?
Thank you so much for the question. I want to end on a top note here. Vladimir Putin, he's been the leader of Russia for quite the time now. And it's not Russia versus Ukraine anymore. It's Russia versus the entire European states. Why I say this is because we look at the coalition of the willing. It's a coalition of 31 countries which have pledged strengthened support for Ukraine against any Russian aggression. Of course, this coalition initiative is led by the United Kingdom and France and was announced by British Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer. They were all seen in the room with Donald Trump earlier this week, and they have all returned back to their respective territories. And I understand, as per your question, that Vladimir Putin is not only fighting Ukraine, but is now in a crossroads of choosing to fight the entire European continent. And it is quite the remark that I'm saying this, but Vladimir Putin, he is one of the unpredictable leaders, not as much as Donald Trump, but he is one of those who has a secret game plan that he is trying to utilize. In a Russian media channel, we see after the Friday's meeting between Donald Trump, a remote mobilized carrier was flying the flags of both the United States and Russia. So his war game is to show European allies that the United States is working with Russia to aggravate this assault. That is how the Russian media tries to play it. But in the coming days, I really hope that there could be some normalcy and some normal common ground that each other can find in order to prevent a humanitarian crisis and in order to prevent further more casualties from this war field.
Sir, last question.
Sure.
Very short answer. Do you want to call Vladimir Putin a silent war master?
To some extent, he is a war master. His history tells me that he was a military intelligence officer of the KGB. So his mindset and how he has shown his aggression towards Ukraine is far a shortfall to the title that you have given. But he is a master of warfare in my understanding.
And he is a very good chess player, I heard from some of the Russian journalists. Ladies and gentlemen, according to the editorial policy of this show, our job is to send the goodwill, good wish to the world, and it is a part to wish the birth date of the notable personalities of the world. Today is a birthday of US 23rd President. I am going to tell his name. He is Benjamin Harrison. He was the 23rd President of the United States of America, and he has done so much of constitutional changes for the pro-people Americans and conflicts. So we want to convey good wish for him, for his soul. And one more thing, former US Congressman and presidential candidate personality who was born in 1931, he was very famous among the American young generation, Ron Paul. Today his birthday. From SATV's International Affairs, we want to say happy birthday to you, sir.